Hi, I'm Dane Campbell. Welcome to Change with Dane. I thought a lot about what I wanted to talk with you this week. It's 1 May 2025, and I thought it would be important for me, kind of on the front side of everything, to give you a bit more detail about why I feel talking about change is so important and how I sort of came to the decision that I wanted to focus working with a population that I am trying to reach in my private practice, which is people who are leaving high demand religions, organizations, or cults. So let me tell you a little bit more in depth about my story, and this will be brief because there's a lot of details involved with this, and some of that is outlined in the book that I'm currently working on getting published. So there will be more details that you can find and fill out if you desire. But I want to give you a high-level view of how I got to this point and why I'm doing what I'm doing. About 15 years ago, I was in the midst of my Air Force career and I was deployed. And I left my wife home with 4 children in ages ranging from 16 to 1 year old. So if you think about that, her challenges were probably much greater than mine, dealing with a couple of adolescents and also with a very, very tiny baby who was barely a year old and had been born 3 months early. So all of the issues that go around trying to grow a tiny child who was slow to meet some of those developmental milestones. So she was very, very challenged and struggling with the things that she had to do to make life work and to take care of our kids. So into this mix comes some political things that were going on back in the States. We at the time were living in England, where I was formerly stationed. And my son was very attuned to civic matters and felt like an issue that was happening in California, which was Proposition 8, which was a proposition to take away the rights of gay and lesbian people being able to marry. And he found out that the church we belonged to were inserting themselves in that situation in a way that he didn't think was appropriate for a religion to do. And so he started to go down this path of a journey of trying to learn more about the church and about why they might do something like this. And he began a faith crisis, or a journey that was all-encompassing for him. He was doing so much research and so focused on trying to figure out the answers for himself that he wasn't going to bed at night, he was getting up late, and my wife was really struggling with the situation that he was going through and that she was trying to help him with. And she talked to me, and I suggested she check his browser history to see what he was doing up so late, because neither one of us had ever conceived that this might be a concern or an issue. Well, she found what he was studying, and she started to look at it as well, and she started to have some concerns with some of those issues that he was uncovering that related to uncorrelated history and doctrine. In the early 70s, the church that I belonged to began to take a very hard stance on making sure that the things that they presented were correlated in such a way that everything matched each other and the message was getting out the way that they wanted to curate it, and that there was little to no concerns that people could find on the surface to have challenges with the history or doctrine of the church. So she started to share some of these sources with me, and I started my own journey to learn and read and look at the uncorrelated material in terms of the true history of the church and where the doctrines came from, and why leaders made decisions to do the things that they did over the course of the inception and development of the church. So this was a all-encompassing situation. I can't stress that enough. I spent months in study. If I wasn't at work and if I wasn't doing the things I needed to do with the family, I had my head in books and in materials that early church leaders wrote, things that were written about the early church, and all of the history that I could get my hands on. I looked, I studied, I prayed, I pondered. It was a very focused time on trying to find the answers. And honestly, trying to feel good about the way that I had characterized the church in my life for 45 years. That it was the one true church, that it was given by God through the hand of a chosen prophet, and that all of the truth necessary to get back to God and get your family back to God was in this organization and was in this church. And the more study that I did, the deeper that I got, the more concerned I became over the teachings, over the history, over the early leaders of the church and how they reacted, interacted, made decisions, and did things. And at the end of the day, after my deployment, after a move to California, and after many, many months of study, painstaking study, prayer, pondering, looking, I came to have a very strong belief that the things that I had been taught my entire life simply were not true. They simply did not match up with what was written and shown to be the truth from the past. And I could no longer ethically support and feel like I could be a part of this organization or the organization that I was raised in and the culture that I was so much a part of. I cannot express to you how devastating it is when you go down this road and you've believed something so wholeheartedly, you've loved something so much, you put all of your eggs in that basket because you believed this was the thing, the way, the path to get back to God. And when that is gone and when that is taken away, I was bereft. I was so alone. There was such a hole where all of that doctrine, history, and teaching used to be. I felt like I was in a black hole that had no place to go, and I was struggling just to find a way to move forward each and every day. I will tell you that the thing that kept me going was on the very day that I decided that the doctrines were not true for me. There was such a relief, such a burden of guilt and shame that was taken from my shoulders, that was the thing that kept me moving forward. I felt so good about that I thought maybe I would be able to recover and find some sort of framework and be able to lay something else as a foundation to move forward with. Mind you, this was many years ago. At this point in the world, there are hundreds of podcasters and podcasts and YouTube channels and people that have been through this process and that are out there to try to help others who are going through this process. But when I went through it, those were kind of few and far between. There were a few podcasts out there with people who were just starting this process. And luckily, I found a couple of those as just kind of a string that I could hold on to. And I could say, I'm not the only one that has gone through this. And others have walked this path and they've been okay, and they've been able to find peace and joy and happiness on the other side of their faith transition or their faith journey. But I will say that I felt entirely isolated and alone. It was a great benefit that my wife was on the same path as me, and we kind of hit this process at the same time. So at least we weren't dealing also with a mixed faith relationship. We were able to negotiate this side by side. But we were concerned about how our families would react to us, and we were concerned about where we would find community, and we were concerned about how we would be able to raise responsible, ethical children because of the rhetoric that we had been fed our whole lives that you can't do that without the church or without a church. So there were many things in the mix, and I think if the resources might have been a little bit different, a little more robust, it wouldn't have taken me 10 years to feel like I was back on my feet. But it's taken a very long time. And I felt like resources were difficult to find. And if maybe that would have been different, I could have recovered sooner. I could have got my bearings quicker, and I wouldn't have had to spend so much time feeling like I was flailing because of the loss of my entire foundation and belief system in life. So this process can be traumatic. This process can lead to existential crisis for many, and oftentimes it leads to feelings of isolation. It can lead to loss of community, and it can lead to loss of family. And this is very real for many people who go through this process. And what I want to do with my platform is help people understand that no matter what brings on this change, whether it was a kid that was looking at information and you found it and you started looking, or whether it was a podcast that you heard, or whether for whatever reason you just feel like your critical thinking skills were peaked one day and you started to look at things that you told yourself you would never read or consider. Whether it's any of those things or 1,000 other things that could lead down this path, I want people to understand that change is okay and it's good, and you can find ways to get help and work through some of these issues that I experienced for myself when I realized that the things that I'd been taught I could no longer believe in and were no longer true for me. So that's why Change With Dane exists. That's why I want to find those people and help them in this process. Leaving high demand religions, leaving high demand organizations, leaving cults. That will leave you feeling like you don't know what's going on, that you're a little bit crazy, that you're isolated, you're the only one going through it, and maybe like there's nowhere to turn for help. But I'm here to tell you that there is. There's lots of sources of help. I'm not the only person out there who stands ready to help people pick up the pieces. But I do want to be one voice amongst all of those out there that will tell you that I am here, and I will help through the process of change if that's your desire, with this process or any other process, because I think that change is good. It can bring growth, it can bring additional strength and resiliency, but sometimes you need somebody to put out their hand and help you through that change. I hope this has been helpful for you today. Stuff that is very near and dear to my heart, has to do with a very, very significant loss. And probably that process is the single most difficult thing I've ever faced in my life and walked through. But here I am on the other side, and happy to hopefully help others that might find themselves going through something similar, or just going through change in general. If you've got to this point, thank you for listening. I hope you'll I hope you'll subscribe, and I will be back next week to talk more about change. Take care.